G'day there guys, Karen here. Back at it again with another episode of r/I Wanna Speak to Your Manager. And in today's episode of r/Entitled Parents, we're going to do a deep dive into the psychology of the Karen. So I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and enjoy today's bloody good content. Posted by user Richard Keck. Titled, A Karen Tries to Steal One of My Dogs When a Hero Saves the Day. Backstory. So me and my neighbor have been arguing a lot recently about my car being on my driveway instead of in my garage. She says that it makes the neighborhood look trashy. Now, I have a large family of dogs, and I decided to turn my garage into a workshop so I can make food bowls and dog houses without having to buy them at the store. Here's the story. So yesterday, I was going down the stairs to check on the newborn pup, Poppy, when I heard the doorbell ring. When I answered, Entitled Mum was there with her kind toddler. As soon as I opened the door, kind toddler happily ran inside the moment he saw the puppies. I let him go because I trusted he would just pet them and stuff. We argued a lot about the driveway thing when I lost my temper and screamed at her about the garage being a workshop for the dogs. Now, I've told her this many times before, but that was the first time I've lost my cool. We stared at each other for a minute when suddenly a light bulb popped up over her head. She asked with a smug face, "May I use the restroom?" I was mad at her, but it seemed like a reasonable request. I told her where it was, and she went down the hall. I went to talk to my girlfriend in the kitchen. We chatted for a while when I went to go check on the dogs, which were all either barking or uncomfortable, when I realized Entitled Mother has Poppy. I screamed to my girlfriend what was happening, and we both ran outside to see Entitled Mother getting into her minivan. Kind Toddler was in the car, probably happily thinking that his mummy got him a new puppy. She was trying to start the car with her door still open. Me and my girlfriend ran as fast as we could to the minivan, but we weren't fast enough. Entitled Mother already started up the car in time, and she took a smug glance at us, which suddenly turned into a look of surprise. I turned around to see Grizzly, the 13-year-old senior, running out the door. Him, being a golden doodle, ran much faster than I could ever dream of and jumped into the front seat right before Entitled Mother closed the door. For 20 seconds, all I could hear was bark, bark, bark. Entitled Mother opened the door with multiple scratches on her face and kicked Grizzly in the face. When the war flashbacks came up of Grizzly as a puppy getting kicked in the face by a Karen, and he bit right into Entitled Mother's ankle. I football tackled Grizzly so he wouldn't do any more damage, while my girlfriend got Poppy. In the end, me and my girlfriend have to go to court because Entitled Mother claimed to an officer that Grizzly attacked her for no reason and wanted him put down. I'll make another post of what happens in court. Send your prayers. Edit. Turns out Entitled Mother broke 2 bones in her left ankle. Won't help in court, but Grizzly definitely is getting some extra treats. Edit 2. I have 3 witnesses, and one of my cameras shows Entitled Mother not walking into the restroom. However, our conversation wasn't recorded, so I have to rely on witnesses and my lawyer. Edit 3. Got camera footage of her car. It shows Grizzly and us chasing her. The angle wasn't good enough for it to see Poppy in her arms, but I think it's good. Edit 4. Just found out that Entitled Mother is charging us all the medical fees, $12,000, and that Grizzly gets put down. I have decided to charge $3,000. Edit 5. Getting a lot of messages about this post being fake. It's not fake, stop spamming me. Edit 6. Entitled Mother decided to make the court session earlier than planned. Pretty smart on her side. Making the court session happen before I get all the evidence. After it's all over, I'll make another post saying what happened. They have posted it, but it's still awaiting approval by the mods, so I'll cover that in the next episode. Posted by user Sassy Cheese Cube. Titled, Entitled Dad Demands That I Don't Use My Left Hand. I come from the land of entitled parents, so I have tons of stories to share. And yes, all of them are true. When I was 15, I was sitting in the food court of a mall, casually, and was writing my assignment and eating some french fries. I was minding my own damn business, Then comes entitled dad with his infant. Here's the thing. I'm ambidextrous and my right hand is my dominant hand. So I was using my right hand when entitled dad came, all over the place. After a while, I get a call, so I was talking on the phone and continued writing simultaneously. I had my phone in my right hand and switched my writing hand to left. Normally, people just get surprised, but that was not the case for entitled dad. He says, "You should not use your left hand. Always use your right hand. Stop using your left hand." Moi, I'm like, "Excuse moi? Use your right hand or else I'll call security and they will take you." I'm like, "Mind your own business. I am older than you. You have to respect me. Where are your parents?" I just started ignoring him. But I crap you not, he asked me this: "With which hand do you wipe your butt?" The same hand that I should slap you with. Dude lost his crap and started yelling in the food court while I just munched on my fries. Lol. He ended up being escorted out by security. Note, in many countries in Asia, using your left hand was considered bad as people used to wipe their butt with it, but I did not expect such behavior from a 30-year-old man. Edit, guys, I use a water pipe/hose thing to wipe my butt, lol. Edit, okay, it's a bidet, I get it. Also, this was India, so congratulations to the guy who bet his house on this. You get to keep your house, lol. Posted by user JustCallMePhil35. Titled, "Entitled Dad Wants My Granny-in-Law's Wheelchair." So, several months ago, my granny-in-law was in an accident that was not her fault. This resulted in both her fake leg and real leg getting broken, among other injuries. Granny is just full of rage. She's 80 years of rage, people. She had fought hard for decades over wanting to be independent and never be put in a home or become someone's burden. She wanted to live in her own home, take care of herself, and die in her own bed. Sadly, the accident made that impossible now. She'll never be able to walk under her own power again, and she's hurting herself using a walker, or whatever you call those wheeled things. She wants to live at home. However, she knew she would need someone there constantly, and hired a day nurse and a night nurse to come take care of her. She refuses to move into any home, relatives or otherwise. Well, in an effort to get her out of the house, my wifey and I would take her out. Yes, we were being very careful about where we were taking her, and going all out on masks and antibacterial everything. We tried to take her places that weren't too crowded, but also wheelchair accessible. Well, a mall that was about an hour out of town had reopened. It's a sad, sad place, because many of the stores were closed and possibly would never get any new business. It was a dying building, but the food court still had excellent food. We went there today. The kids were off playing with some friends, so it was just me wifey, me granny, and meself, taking laps around the mall, taking turns on who pushes granny. Now, granny was wearing a long skirt, but didn't have her fake leg on. You couldn't really see that she had one leg unless you were looking very closely. So I can kind of understand why this entitled dad thought that my granny had two legs. See, we got hungry and went to the food court to get healthy food to eat. We pulled up to a table and started to chow down. Then entitled dad appeared. I don't even need to transcribe this part. It's a dime a dozen story about an entitled parent that wants the wheelchair that someone is currently using. We say no, she says no and cannot walk, and the entitled dad demands it for his son. He was sitting at another table, looking like he was out cold. He was that tired looking. Granny finally had enough and looked him right in the eye and said, "Young man, this is my chair, which I need to move about. I don't care how tired your kid is. He cannot have this. I would not be able to walk at all." Entitled dad obviously replies, "You may be old, but you don't need it at all. You can walk, you old crone." Granny got red in the face and said, "Old crone? Looky here, little boy. I may be old, but I can still kick your ass, even if my only leg is in bad shape." Entitled dad scoffs at her. "Huh, I bet you're only faking about having one leg." Granny looked like she was going to yell again, except she just grinned. She turned her chair to him and lifted up her skirt. She showed him that she was indeed missing a leg. "Think I'm faking here, kid?" She goes into a snide tone. "Think this is a fake stump?" Entitled Dad looked embarrassed and tried to talk. Granny wouldn't let him. She actually lifted up her stump a bit and said, "Why don't you touch my stump? Come on. It might be a real stump, might be fake. Touch it and see. Touch my stump. If it's a fake stump, the chair is yours." The guy backed off and started for his table. Except Granny started to wheel after him, yelling at him, saying, "Come on, touch my stump. You know you want to touch it. Touch it." Me wifey was cracking up at this, so I had to be the one to grab her chair and bring her back. The entitled dad picked up his son and carried him out of there quickly. Granny was grumbling about how rude that man was, but she looked so damn proud of herself. What few people there that were listening in hearing range was also laughing, although 2 people looked disgusted at my granny-in-law. Screw them. But you know, at least that got some of her anger out of her system. The situation calmed her down a great deal and cheered her up. Posted by user Kazumi the Introvert, titled, "How My Entitled Parents Lost Their Precious Baby." So this story has quite a bit of background, but I'll try and make it as easy to understand as I can. The people in this story are me, my full brother 20, Baka, my stepbrother, Nani? My half-brother, Akuma, my entitled mother, my piece of crap father. The backstory. My parents divorced when I was 3 years old. My mother and father had joint custody, but Baka and I lived with my mother and only saw my father every other weekend. My father started dating my soon-to-be stepmom when I was 5 and married her when I was 10. They then had my youngest brother, Akuma. My stepmom isn't really involved in this, but I'd like to say she is one of the sanest people of the story, and I honestly feel bad that she married my father. Relatable? God, I can't say that. My mother is a complete narcissist, and my father is one of those entitled racist rednecks with a violent streak. Baka and I were extremely neglected by my mother. We'd be left home alone at a very young age for long periods of time, forced to fend for ourselves when it came to eating, and were often locked out of our crappy apartment in a very bad neighborhood. We lived in a spot where white people were the minority, and trust me when I say that the people around us had no problem threatening to kick your ass for the color of your skin. A part of me wonders if this helped fuel my father's insufferable racism. Despite my mental, verbal, and sometimes physical abuse, my mother very clearly had a favorite child, and it was Baka. She had me when she was 19 and Baka at 20. I swear, she only kept us to spite her parents because my grandparents told her she wouldn't be a good mum. My mother would always go easier on Baka despite his extreme behavioral problems. We later found out he had a severe case of borderline personality disorder that caused him to get violent. That often meant I got the crap beat out of me. My mother refused to get him treatment. She had a weird thing about just toughing things out. I once had strep and the flu, had to drive my 17-year-old self to the urgent care, only to be told that my heart rate was 1 number away from them legally having to call an ambulance. If it went up any more, then I would have to go to the hospital. My mother responded by saying the doctors just wanted more money from us. She even made her favorite child walk without crutches when he had stitches in his foot because it would heal faster. Ow! My father didn't do much to us. He screamed a lot, a ton of empty threats and breaking things. He never touched us because my mom was so trigger-happy about suing him. He did, however, severely abuse Nani. Nani is a sweet kid with a learning disability, and my father made it very clear to him at a young age that he was never his son. When Akuma was born, he became a spoiled brat. So much so that they didn't celebrate Nani's birthday, so that they would have more money to spend on Akuma. Now that you have the main idea of what the background is, let's get to the good stuff. How my parents' star child cut them off. The story. Baka was my father's everything. He listened to country and western music. He made racist/homophobic comments, and best of all, was going into the military to fight for his country. My mother saw Barker as her crowned bragging piece. She got to tell everyone how brave and selfless her son was while he was away, and of course, use his sweet military discounts. What my father didn't know is that Barker loved metal music, was in a gay relationship, and not so legally adopted by his boyfriend's lesbian parents, and was joining the military to get the hell away from our family. Barker left for boot camp, and we got word that he'd been graduating at the top of his class. Is it considered a class in a boot camp? I don't know. Of course, my parents were over the moon, and for once in their lives, got along to coordinate how to drive 8 hours across the country to go to see him on base for the graduation. I personally lived further away. My mother kicked me out after Barker left, and I moved in with my boyfriend further north, 3 states away. Despite not wanting to go, and Barker not caring if I showed up, my mother and father literally hounded me like the hellspawns they are until I went. So I finally spent my money to drive all the way down to see him, my mother making plans for me to stay with her while we were down there. Now, before I tell you just how nasty things got, you should know that after being kicked out and getting mental help from my hellish upbringing, turns out I have CPTSD, BPD, bipolar 2, runs in the family, AVPD, and GAD. 2 of those disorders run in the family, the others are all basically caused by trauma and abuse. At this point in my life, and still to this day, my triggers are so severe that I can't have a job. I couldn't even leave my house alone for more than 10 minutes before having an episode. My mother refused to allow me to bring my service dog, and I nearly died just trying to make it across the country to this graduation. When I got there, it was immediately clear that this was going to be one of the worst experiences of my life. My mother got so nasty that I nearly OD'd on anxiety meds to keep me from having a public episode on the base. When we were in the hotel, I collapsed in the bathroom and told my mother that I thought I was going to pass out, and her exact words were, "What do you expect me to do?" before she laid in bed and watched Netflix. Needless to say, it was complete hell. She basically used me as a human punching bag because my brother's boyfriend's family came down to support him. My parents to this day still don't even know they're together, even though a blind man could see they love each other. My father and mother were both ticked that he spent the whole time with his boyfriend's family rather than with his blood family. I ended up having enough, and walked out of my mother's hotel room one night as she was cussing me out. I just took my phone, no shoes, no wallet. I just left and called my boyfriend sobbing. I came back an hour later to find that my mother left and had locked me out. She didn't come back for 4 hours, and I had to get the maintenance guys to let me back into the room. When the trip finally came to a close, and we were on our way home, my mother decided to bestow her best ever so loving thoughts on me. She said, and I quote, "Barker is a soldier now. He's got his whole life set up for him and will never have to worry about anything. I'm so proud of him. He really made something of himself. Too bad I can't say the same for you." I had just dropped out of college 6 months before completing my first degree because the college counselors were worried about me and their disabled student program wouldn't be able to cover my major symptoms, which at the time were me literally falling unconscious. The revenge. After a few months of life going back to normal and more intense doctor visits on my end, turns out my mother re-traumatized me and I had to get on some heavy meds. My brother randomly called me. He had finished his schooling in California and was now stationed overseas, a privilege only the top 2 soldiers were supposed to get. I had heard that my parents were all over the place happy about it. Barker never called me, so when he did, I was surprised to say the least. He asked me about what happened during his graduation, and I told him. We've always been brutally honest with one another, and despite us being mostly indifferent towards each other's existence, we do have a bond forged in surviving abuse. When my brother found out exactly what happened, he was livid. Honestly, livid doesn't even seem to express how angry he was. Apparently, he had been playing along with my parents' wishes to talk every week, write letters, etc., just to keep them at bay since he went overseas and my father had let it slip about what had happened. We had a somewhat awkward conversation about our sucky childhood, and he ended the call by basically saying screw him. It only took about a week before my parents started texting me if I had heard from Barker. My parents had been sending him these huge care packages stuff and trying to call him, but the care packages were returned to them and the calls were never picked up. My brother cut contact off completely. My parents were forced to pay huge customs fines on all these packages, and they later found out that Barker was only keeping contact with his boyfriend's parents. When Barker came home for the first time in 2 years, he stayed with his boyfriend's parents and refused to go see my parents. He only saw my mother when she drove him to see me, again 3 states away. She was under the impression that he'd stay with her afterward, but he left the day after to go back overseas. When he went back overseas, I got a text from Barker. He was in Japan at a huge anime convention and asked if I wanted something. Of course, I said yes, and he said that he'd give it to me the next time he came home. He also said that he was changing his last name to the name I changed mine to, the last name of one of my favorite anime characters. So that's the story of how my entitled, abusive parents lost their star child for treating their other kids like garbage. Barker is still Barker, but I couldn't be prouder to be his older brother. Posted by user, I'm sad I want help. Titled, Entitled Mum demands I use a non-accessible seat on the bus. Some quick background, I had a tumor on my spine a few years ago. Luckily, it was removed and I'm pretty healthy overall now, but not so luckily, I can't walk anymore. Into meeting the entitled mother. Last week, I had a doctor's appointment as a follow-up to some issues that I've been having. Normally, my parents would take me to the doctor, but they were pretty busy, so I figured I'd take the bus. Luckily, my city overall has a very accessible bus system. They also have specific buses meant to assist people with disabilities, but my route from the house to the doctor's office aligned pretty much perfectly with one of the normal bus routes, so I figured I'd just use it. All the normal buses are equipped with wheelchair ramps and a place to secure it. When there isn't a wheelchair user on the bus, there are seats over the area that's used to secure a wheelchair. I can't be anywhere else as it's a safety hazard to have a large metal chair wheeling around haphazardly. So the driver lowers the ramp and I board the bus. Due to COVID, the bus was pretty empty. During this whole thing, I was wearing a mask, and I also got tested last week, so don't have to worry about my contact with the driver. There were a few people in the back, and a woman with her child, who's probably about 6, seated at the front over the wheelchair securement area. Which is fine. The area has a notice saying people with disabilities have priority seating, but the general public can use it if nobody else needs to. Normally, it would be a simple, "Hey, could you please move? I need to secure my wheelchair," but not this time. The conversation isn't exact, because my memory isn't perfect, but here's my best recreation of the encounter. I stayed quiet for most of it. Luckily, the bus driver was absolutely amazing and stood up for me. He says, "Hey, could you move?" to the entitled mother and daughter. Entitled mother says, "No, my daughter and I are sitting here." He replies, "You need to move to another seat so I can secure the passengers, me, wheelchair. They can sit somewhere else." "No, that's the only area with proper securement. They can just take the next bus." "No, they have a right to use the bus. You need to move." "No, my daughter and I are staying. You can't make me." "Yes, I can. You can either move seats now or you can leave." "Oh, look, if it's really a bother, I can take the next bus." I'm very non-confrontational. I would have been late to the doctor's appointment, but I don't like bothering people. Bus driver says to me, "No, you can take this one." "See, the cripple even says she doesn't need it." Bus driver to entitled mother, "You can either move seats or wait here until the police arrive." "You can't make my daughter and I move. This is harassment." At this point, the bus driver began to call someone. I'm unsure if it was the actual police or what, but the entitled mother ended up moving 2 seats over, thankfully, and I got secured in the seat. She spent the rest of the time glaring at me, but honestly, I don't mind. There are some complete a-holes like the entitled mother, but there are also great people like the bus driver. When I was getting off, he apologized for entitled mother's actions, even though obviously they weren't his fault. In the end, I got to the doctor's appointment on time, so all was well. I just hope the woman's daughter learns to not be an a-hole somehow. Posted by user CookieDog800, titled, Entitled Mother and Her Little Crap Want My Mask My Grandma Made Me. This is getting ridiculous with entitled mothers and masks. So my grandma sews for a small hobby, and she made me, my sister, and my mother homemade masks with some fabric that she saved up for years. They were pretty cool. Apparently so cool, they became Entitled Parents magnets. So the cast. Cookie, I wonder who. Mum is my mother, an entitled kid, the most spoiled little crap on this planet. Story. So now that I'm 18, I'm applying for a checking and savings account, which means I get a card. That plastic card that acts as cash. Not accurate. If you don't know what it is, look it up or ask someone who does have one. So, I was wearing the mask my grandma gave me. It has a Pac-Man on it, which is cool. My mother was wearing her mask, which has a solid light blue color scheme. So we went to the credit union, and then we hear some little crap screaming, and a mother screaming too. It was like this. What do you mean my baby can't get a checking account? He has enough money, and he was an honor roll student for 3 years running. I want a credit card right now. I get one because I'm perfect. Both were screaming at the same time. That poor employee was just a wreck. She couldn't get a word in, and then that brat saw my Pac-Man mask, and crap hit the fan again. I want that mask that he has. Fine, then go get it, while I report this employee. The tramp told her little crap to come over and take my mask off of my face. So he tried it, but it didn't happen. I was too tall for him to grab my mask. By the way, now would be a good time to mention that the kid was about 5, maybe 6. So my question is, what the hell is a 5 or 6-year-old gonna do with a checking card? Then he tried to get my mask by jumping on me like I was a freaking jungle gym. But he failed, and the entitled mother turned her attention to me. Great. You give my son that mask right now. He deserves it more. He had honor roll for 3 years. Then my mum cut her off. I told her that people like this existed, and there was this subreddit for such cases. But she didn't listen. Now she does. Listen here. My mum has taught kids in high school for almost 10 years now. She has put up with some of the stupidest kids from her school and schools. She doesn't put up with a lot of BS. My mother made these masks for us to keep us safe, and you and your little hellspawn are going to leave us alone, or I will call the police. I don't give a rat's ass about your kid getting honor roll. If he does, then you reward him. Don't pawn it off on others. It's your job to do that, not others. So if you want to reward him, then get your lazy ass up, get your money, then go get him something. Entitled mother is speechless. She left, and her little crap too. My mum was steaming after that, but she calmed down, and we went to get my card and accounts. Now I have a checking and saving account with a nice card to boot too. My mum is now looking on this subreddit to see if there's any truth to what we've experienced. She believes now, which is horrible. Stay safe everyone, and have a good one. Posted by user Call Me Crazy. Titled, Entitled mother leaves her kid in my garden, then storms out after I tell her off. This happened about an hour ago, and I'm still irritated about it. I'm a single mother to 3 kids. D is 5, S1 is 4, and S2 is almost 2. My eldest 2 were heartbroken when they learned that we couldn't visit our local park because of the current pandemic. Nasty germs, as they call it. So to entertain them, I bought quite a few nice things for them to play with. My family have also contributed to this, including buying and setting up a Wendy house, and moving a large plastic climbing frame with 2 attached slides from my uncle's house to here. But I'm very grateful for everything they've done. My kids love playing outside, and I'm lucky to have a lot of garden space. I understand that not everyone has a lot of space in their garden, but we also live in a rural area, So there's lots of land to explore, including walking trails, a lake and mountains, and you can see everything kid-related from the street. My garden isn't level on one side, so I put everything on that side instead. On to the story. SK, sweet kid, about 7, EM, entitled mother, late 30s, early 40s. S2 had just gone down for his nap when D and S1 asked if they could go out to play in the garden. I said okay, unlocked the door for them, locked the front gate, it's just a simple metal clasp to join it together so the kids can't open it, and then headed back in to start tidying up. I went upstairs to put some clothes away and heard the gate close. I thought that it might be my stepfather dropping off some treats for the kids, so imagine my surprise when I walked out the front door and saw a child instead. D is very good with fiddly things like the clasp on the gate, but she can't open it. So I assumed that entitled mother opened it, let SK in, and then closed it again. I say, "Oh, hi there. What are you doing here?" "Well, hi, my ma'am said that I could come in to play, can I?" I'm surprised and confused to say the least, and I say, where is your ma'am now?" "I'm sorry, honey, but I don't think I know you. What's your name?" "My name is SK. My ma'am said she'd be back soon." "She left you here?" "Yeah, can I go and play now?" Me, feeling bad for the kids, say, "Okay, but I'll have to ask you to clean your hands first. Do you know about the nasty germs?" And she nods. "Okay, good. I'll go and get some things and then we'll sort you out." I go inside to get my hand gel, help SK clean her hands, and then walk with her to the back of the garden. I say, "D, S1, this is K. She's going to be here for a little bit. How about we do some drawings with chalk?" The kids all say yes, so I draw some lines between them all and tell them that it's their drawing space to give them some room to socially distance. I keep an eye on them, but also turn to check the street every so often. I was busy helping S1 get a stone out of his sandal when I heard the gate close again. Entitled mother says, "SK, time to go." I say, "Oh hi, you must be SK's ma'am. Can I have a word please?" I gesture a little way away from the kids, and entitled mother says, "No, we have to go now. I have to get back home to let my dog out." "Well, I'd like an explanation before you leave. Why did you just leave SK in my garden? Why didn't you at least knock on the door and ask?" "I needed to go to the shop and didn't want to take her with me. Normally, I'd let her play in the park, but it's closed. So when I saw your garden, I thought it was a great idea. I'm sure you understand how stressful it is to be a ma'am during this time." "I do, but I also understand how irresponsible it is to leave your child with a stranger while you go elsewhere. The things in this garden belong to me and my kids, not to anyone who happens to be walking past." "Oh, you're not a stranger. I've seen you on the school run and knew you lived here." "I didn't recognize SK, and I didn't recognize you either. Knowing someone from the school doesn't instantly mean you can just leave them with that person." "Why are you making such a stink about this? It's done now anyway." "I'm making a stink about this because you left your child here, with a stranger, that you didn't know. If she'd have been here any longer, I'd have rang the police." "Why would you have gone that far over this? You're a fudging selfish tramp, keeping the gate locked when other kids could be making use of the stuff here." "Are you seriously that fudging stupid? You left your child here. If my youngest wasn't napping, I'd have asked SK where she lived and taken her back to your house. I'd have quite happily waited outside to give you a bollocking then too. What kind of parent leaves their child with a stranger while they pop to the shop? Next time, don't leave your child in a stranger's garden and you won't have any problems. If you drop SK here again, I will ring the police. What if I didn't actually live here? What if something happened to her? Come on SK, we're leaving. I'm not going to stand here and listen to a child tell me how to parent." I'm 23, so yes, a young parent. Well, clearly this child can parent better than you can. Get the frick out of my garden now. Entitled mother glares at me, grabs SK by the arm and starts storming off. SK looks sad and waves at me. I wave back with an apologetic look on my face. I feel so sorry for her. After she left, D strides up to me with her arms folded over her chest. She's smiling, so I know it isn't something serious. "What's wrong, D?" "You said naughty words." Me, chuckling, say, "Sorry, baby. Mammy'll put some money in the naughty word pot." The naughty word pot money goes towards sweets for them if we go to the shop. Yes, all together, no child endangerment here. And that's it. I'm hoping I don't see much of Entitled Mother when school eventually starts back up, but I'd be happy to see SK again. She and D played very nicely together, and I could see the potential for friendship there. Edit. I've had a few comments about one thing or another, so I'll just answer here. 1. The park. When she said that she would leave SK in the park to go to the shop, I assume she means the local tiny shop directly opposite the park. It has huge glass windows and a crystal clear view of the park, which is quite small too. I'm not justifying her action of leaving SK there at all, but it might explain why she thought it was okay. 2. Reporting Entitled Mother to some kind of children's services or the police. I mentioned in a comment that at first I thought that SK might have been lying about her mother leaving her there, so I decided to wait it out. So I didn't want to report her straight away. I thought that perhaps it was just a case of a child who wanted to play in a garden that was basically a park. If a child goes missing in this area, you know about it pretty quickly as parents, family members, and neighbors will knock on doors asking if anyone has seen the missing child. After thinking on it, I called the non-emergency number for the police and reported what happened. They took SK's name and descriptions of both of them, as well as my postcode etc. for an area reference. But other than that, they said that not much else could be done because of the lack of information that was available. No surnames, no first name for Entitled Mother, no known address. I would have called Children's Services, but their offices are closed for the weekend and only an emergency number is available. I didn't want to take up time on that line that another child could use, so I called the police instead. I hope that makes sense and doesn't come across as I'm not worried about SK. I am. If I knew anyone who knew her, I'd be asking all sorts of questions to get more information to make a better report. 3. Also, thank you to the people who have left very kind comments. I always feel like less of a mother because I had my kids so young, and I always feel like I have something to prove. Usually, I have a very I don't give a frick what you think attitude, but it's different when my kids are concerned. So much judgment goes around about all kinds of parents, whether they are young or not. It's so refreshing to see such lovely comments. Alright, and I think that's where we're going to leave today's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed the content today. If you guys loved watching it as much as I loved making it, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel already if you haven't. Tell me what you thought of it down in the comments below, maybe like the video, who knows. I'd also like to take this time to thank my awesome Patreon and channel members. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably be homeless on the streets of Ireland, crying Irish dancing all over town. It would just be a mess. But no, for real, you guys are up on the screen now. Thank each and every one of you guys. And if you personally want to join the club yourself, there are links down in the description below. There's also the join button next to the subscribe button. Small monthly fee, but hey, it goes a long way to help me create more awesome content. Well, with that said, guys, I hope you do have a lovely day, night, sleep, evening, day at work, day at school, whatever you're up to. I hope you keep awesome today. You're looking amazing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.